Hey guys, this is Yash, the founder of Infloq. If you're managing influencer content, you know the pain, right? So scripts are lost across email threads. Sometimes approvals are scattered across your WhatsApp messages. No visibility on what's stuck and zero analytics once the content goes live. On top of this, there's no audit logs. So for example, if someone approves the wrong content, there is no data with respect to why that happened. Sometimes they might say that they got access to wrong versions and a bunch of different issues around, approving influencer content and essentially building a more scalable, reliable workflow in order to approve and post more good quality content. And which is why we created Infloq. So it's a content operating system from campaign creation to performance analytics, all in single platform. We created this platform keeping in mind the fact that we wanted to connect the brands to the right set of verified influencers who genuinely are interested in pushing the interests forward of the brand and create content that is more human in nature. There are three core engines with respect to how Infloq works. The first is the workflows and approvals, which is a structured flow for multi-team reviews. And it's not as boring as it sounds. Essentially, it enables you to set up your team like a workflow engine of sorts. So every time an agency or an influencer submits the content, it goes through the approval chain before the content is made live to the end users. Second is performance analytics. So once you actually get your content approved, how do we monitor the performance of the content? And we do this by giving you the DQ score, ROI, engagement rate, and so on and so forth. And finally, influencer management. Infloq is also a platform where influencers can join and also work with your campaign with the budget that you define for that specific campaign. So it's a complete solution, and these are our three core engines. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the demo of the platform now. I'm going to set up a simple workflow here. First, before we go into the workflow, you have the option to invite the users, which is actually the core of the product itself. This is essentially where you would invite your influencers, your teams. You can also work with the influencers that we by default have on the platform. Before you invite the users, you can also go ahead and create teams so that you can make sure that you've organized people in the right team. So for example, I have the legal team, taxation, influencer team, agency team, brand manager, and so on. And all of these have different rights. So based on the type they are, so if they are a manager, they have access to create campaigns, monitor, approve things. If they are an admin, they have access to everything. If they're a brand manager, they can view things. Agency team has agency access. Influencer team has influencer access, and everyone who just approves the content has the internal access per se. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you how a simple campaign is set up. In order to set up campaign, we'll just go ahead and click on the campaigns button here. And before we actually set up campaign, there are a couple of steps you need to do, right? So firstly, we need to create a brand where we need to set up campaign. So for example, I'm going to do Ollie Social here as a brand. You can add more details and logos if you want, but I'm just going to keep it simple and I'm going to create a brand here. So when I refresh this, you can see a brand is created with a unique brand ID. And this brand ID is essentially the combination of your organization name and the brand name and then the unique ID for the specific brand. You can go ahead and add products inside the brand. So I'm going to go ahead and say Ollie Social as the brand, and I'm going to add auto commenting as one of the products. And I'm going to go ahead and create product, and you can see the product is added here. The third core flow of Infloq is the ability for you to create workflows. Now, what are workflows? Workflows are essentially your ways to define how the approval flow for your content looks like. So for example, if you want as a media manager or brand manager to approve your content first, you can define yourself as the approver. Second, you can define the 3 other teams or 4 other teams or X other teams that you want the content to go through before the approval is received. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and show you a sample here. So I'm going to go ahead and click create a workflow option here, and I'm going to say sample workflow. Now in this, I can add maximum approval time, meaning how long before the content should be approved. When a content enters this workflow, I'm going to go ahead and create next, and this is the core of the workflow itself. Now this is where we define the stages that the content should go through in the approval workflow. Now while we are defining these sequentially, you also have the ability or option to make this parallel, and I'll show you that setup in a second. I'm going to go ahead and say, let's say marketing team approval, and you can then select the team you want to assign here. By default, you can only assign the internal teams for approvals. So I'm going to go ahead and select the content team here, and I can add more stages and so on and so forth. So once I go ahead and create this workflow, for example, I'm going to say test team here, and I'm going to select, let's say, the legal team here. I'm going to go ahead and create the workflow. A workflow like this is created, and you can now use this workflow, attach it to any campaign, and any piece of content that is uploaded for that specific campaign will go via this workflow. And this is where we set up the campaign itself, right? So on the campaign management page, I'll go ahead and click on create campaign. And in this, I have a couple of options to fill. Very first step is to actually select the brand and the product we want to work with. We'll go ahead and add those details here. Now, there are a couple of things you can do when you set up a campaign, right? So for example, if you want the campaign to have a script plus video approval flow, then you need to select this button. So for example, I want the agency or influencer to submit the script of their content first before the video is posted. You can select this option. If you want them to only have video, you can select this option. For script, you can select this option. So for now, we'll select the hybrid workflow. We'll go ahead and add more details with respect to planned, post planned views. This is primarily because when you're setting up campaign, you have certain metrics in mind that you want to work with. In this scenario, maybe you want to work with these numbers, so you can add these details here. You can select the creator, audience, and targeting. In case you're looking to use Infloq's influencer network, you can add genres that you're looking for, and so on and so forth right here. And then this is the important piece of the workflow, right? So here on the step 5 workflow and approval page, you have the approval workflow on the top. Now this is where you select the workflow that you want to use in this specific campaign. We created a sample workflow, and we by default have a software but a content workflow in place, and this is the default one, and which is why it's selected by default. Now, depending on what you select here, so for example, if we select the second one, then different teams will appear below. If you select the first one, then maybe different teams will appear. So essentially, it's the template that we created. Now, every time we create a new campaign, we can just choose which workflow we want. For example, if you have a specific brand that follows a specific set of approvals, then you can select that workflow here. And maybe if you want to work with different one, you can select a different one here. So essentially, it's a quicker way for you to just choose the workflow you want to work with and only change details that might be specific to a campaign. Now, approval flow, essentially, do you want this to go one stage at a time, or do you want this to go to all stages simultaneously? You can choose this to be parallel or choose this to be sequential depending on what your use case is. Next piece is interesting, pre-approvers. This is essentially when you want to have some pre-approvers before they enter the workflow. For example, before you send it to my tax, technical or legal teams, I want you to send it to the media manager to approve the script first, so that we don't send wrong content to these teams. So you can add pre-approvers here. This could be your media manager or your brand manager. So essentially, people with either performance viewer or people with manage rights can be the part of this piece. And then finally, you can assign approvers for each of these states. So you will need to select the users that you have in the team and select them as a part of your workflow here. So for example, if you want someone from the legal team to approve this, you can select them, and same for R&D, technical, and so on and so forth. We'll go ahead and click next, and you can add some durations here with respect to campaign, add campaign guidelines that might be relevant for your use case, and then go ahead and create your campaign. Once your campaign is set up, you can either log in as an agency, or you can either invite your agency to the team. So if we click on the teams button here, you can, or rather users button here, you can go ahead and invite the influencer or an agency to your team. And these influencers and agencies will be able to find the campaign that you've created. So let me log in as an agency for now and show you how it looks like from there. So you can see I'm looking at the screen as an agency now, and I can see campaigns that are available for me to apply. I'm going to go ahead and select the campaign that I created, and you can click the join button here in order to access the campaign. Now in there, you have an option to bulk upload scripts. So because if you remember the workflow that we had selected, it was scripts followed by videos. So first we'll want to upload our scripts on the platform, and we'll go ahead and bulk select this, and you have the option to edit the scripts if you want before you send it to the workflow itself. So just make edits as necessary and go ahead and submit these scripts. As you submit these scripts, each of these scripts is treated as a unique content, and they have a unique ID which you can refer to later in the journey, or speak to your teams with respect to timeline for journey. Note that each of the actions you take, each of these steps that the content moves through, is supported by an email notification and a platform notification, so people know that there is something pending on them in order to approve, and it comes with a timeline of sorts. So after the agency submits the content, if you've selected pre-approvers, in this case we selected media manager, the media manager will receive a notification on their email and also on their dashboard. If you log in as a media manager, I'm going to do that very quickly. So as you can see on the media manager screen, I can see the new content that has been submitted. Now I can open this piece of content, I can review the content that is submitted, I can directly add comments for that content, I can approve, request change, or reject this piece of content. Now if I approve this goes to the next 3 teams that I have in my workflow. If I reject it, it goes back to the agency, and agency can then upload the new piece of content. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and approve this piece of content and show you how it looks like like from the other team standpoint. So after I approve this, now on the team dashboard, and you can see, I can actually see the piece of content that was approved by the media manager or the brand manager in this case. I can go ahead and click on the content and I get the same set of options, right? So on top of the script that the media manager also reviewed, or the comment that they added, I can also have my own defined checklist. So when you're creating campaign, you also have option to define a checklist as a media manager or an admin. For example, I want tax teams to make sure that they check these 4 things before the content is approved. So I can go ahead and add that in the checklist, and as these teams are approving my content, I need to make sure these checklists are checked before I can approve the content. And for the agencies and or rather these internal teams, I have the same options. You can either approve, request, change, or reject. If they approve, request, change, or reject, it goes back to the agency, and the agency can then upload new piece of content. And like I said, everything is tracked in your audit logs, and it's also available in the workflow chain itself. So let's say they go ahead and approve the content, all 3 of them. The content is now approved, and you can actually go to the campaign analytics as the media manager or admin, and you will be able to see that the content has gone through all 3 approval stages or all 4 approval stages, depending on how you've defined your workflow. Now, once the content is approved, the agency or the influencer has the option to go ahead and add the link to the post, the specific post that has been approved. And once you do that, you can see campaign analytics on your screen. So I can go to the campaign analytics section here, and you can see I have a bunch of available analytics right here. So you can see I have a bunch of different analytics, and these are all broken down by campaign, DQ scores, and so on and so forth. So this is essentially what your Infloq as a platform is. And note that you can also do all of this by inviting the influencers that are available on our platform. You can essentially work with them, pay basis performance in the future as well. And we're also adding more AI capabilities that will enable your team to do a lot more very, very quickly, right? So our entire goal is to make sure that we're able to help you publish good quality content and a lot of it. And I hope this demo was able to at least give you a high level with respect to what you can do. Now, this metrics that I'm showing on the screen are basics. You can actually see content level metrics. So you can break it down by content analytics. You can break it down by influencer analytics. You can also see advanced analytics, and you can show all sorts of metrics on the dashboard, essentially enabling you to do, all sorts of things. And all of this is also supported by audit logs, templates, workflow templates, and so on and so forth, right? So I can keep on going. We've made this very extensive, especially for enterprises and businesses, to make content approval easier, reliable, and scalable. All right. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.